We are the champions, my friends, and we'll keep on fighting till the end. Next on Michigan Wolverines Live. And welcome to another episode of Michigan Wolverines Live, Tuesday, January 9th, 2024. My name is John D'Adamo, and I'm here with you for episode 127, the National Championship Celebration episode here at the Voice of College Football. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at John D'Adamo. Go ahead and do that. We will be joined in about 10 minutes by Tanner Wooten from Blue by 90. Forgive my background. I normally do this show from the business center to give it a little more professionalism, but we have tornadoes going on, and I'm not going to leave my dog when there's tornadoes. So I'm here. And if the power goes out, now you know why. So people can tell others, oh, why the show stop? Because there's tornadoes going on in Florida. And I think Jason and others are dealing with stuff too. So we're going to power through because, Michigan Wolverines, we don't fear weather. We don't fear snow or flu or anything. We just get out there and win. So I want to start by encouraging everybody to like, subscribe, share with a friend, and for the love of God, please make sure that as many people as possible are subscribed to Michigan football at the Voice of College Football. All right? I'm even going to give you a helpful graphic made by our very own Tim Prangley to just remind everybody to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And the reason is because the more people that are subscribed, the bigger our community can get, and we can really make this a great time, the more the merrier, as they say. Well, folks, it doesn't feel real yet. Still sinking in. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's still sinking in. That Michigan just won the national championship last night. And in decisive fashion. We're not talking about a 3-point, a lot of people said it was going to be a 3-point game. I even predicted 34-23. I thought it would be an 11-point game. I thought Michael Penix and Washington were going to score more than they did. Michigan beat the number 2 team in the country by 21 points. And we are going to break down everything. But let's begin with this. Narratives shattered. They said we couldn't beat Ohio State. Well, 3 years now, Michigan has beat Ohio State. They said we couldn't win the Big Ten championship. Well, Jim Harbaugh's now won the Big Ten championship 3 years in a row. They said we couldn't win a playoff game. Michigan goes ahead to the Rose Bowl and beats Alabama in an overtime stunner. And they said, well, you might be able to do all those things, but there's no way you're winning a national championship. And Michigan last night solidly defeats Washington, the number 2 team in the nation, to win the national championship. And by the way, they did all of that this year. Beat Ohio State, won the Big Ten, won a playoff game, won the national championship. All 4 of those things in 2023 were done without who? Connor Stallions. Maybe Michigan is just the best team in the country. Maybe. But I digress. Absolutely moose. Shattered all narratives. Couldn't sleep last night, still pinching myself. Not afraid of weather. That's right. We're not Buckeyes. We don't care about snow or rain or anything like that. I will say it was pretty damn cold, though, when I went to Ann Arbor for the Illinois game. That was cold. When you live in Florida, you're not used to it as much, you know? So let's start with the leaders and best, shall we? I'm awarding the coaching leaders and best to the same 5 people that I awarded it to on Friday night show with Tony Altimore. Jim Harbaugh, for obvious reasons, coached the program so well that for 6 games, he didn't even have to be there on the sidelines. That's how well he coached this team. Led the team with a player-led culture. And just to give everybody a recap, for those of you who may not be following as closely the Michigan situation, I was on the Big Ten show with Justin Adams and Sonny Varma the other day, and I was battling tonsillitis, but I went on anyway with hot tea and cough drops. And I explained how Jim Harbaugh, he could have taken a year off after 2020. He could have said, screw you guys, I'm going home, a la Cartman from South Park. He could have gone to the NFL, maybe a head coach of the Jets. They were looking. But he takes a 50% pay cut. He fires Don Brown. He demotes Josh Gaddis, allegedly, and instills the 2009 Stanford playbook. And then he calls his brother, and he says, hey, bro, can you help me out? I'm kind of up against it here. And he says, well, you can have Mike Macdonald or you can have Jesse Minter. Well, I'll take Mike Macdonald. And they install the 4-3 multiple Ravens defense that's actually done tremendously well in the NFL as well. Number 1 in the country right now in the NFL for the Ravens. Mike Macdonald then, of course, becomes the DC at the Ravens. Jesse Minter comes in and takes over. In case people aren't caught up to speed with the changes Jim Harbaugh made that had nothing to do with allegations or anything else, but personnel changes that were made to improve the team, player-led culture to get them to this point. And that's why I'm awarding Jim Harbaugh the first leader and best coaching award this week. We've got Sharon Moore, obviously, called plays when he needed to. The O-line, despite Zach Zinner going down, makes the adjustments. Puts Carson Barnhart at right guard. Puts Trente Jones at right tackle. And they get the push that they needed to get in crucial moments to beat Alabama and Washington. Jesse Minter, defense, for obvious reasons, was able to get push on the Alabama O-line. And then they go and they impose their will on Washington. I was shocked that Penix was limited to 255. I thought he was going to go for 300, maybe 350, 3 touchdowns. That's what I thought. Just like Ohio State, just like CJ Stroud. And Jesse Minter was able to limit the effectiveness of, I'd say, one of the most explosive quarterbacks in college football, Michael Penix. Ben Herbert for strength and conditioning. People forget about him. But I was talking with the tight end, freshman tight end, Zach Marshall, and he was talking about how Herb is right up there with his other coaches in terms of, holding him accountable. Instilling a culture of toughness, of mental toughness, of physical toughness. And Mike Hart converting Khalil Mullings from a linebacker into a running back and now making him one of the top 3 running backs in that corps. Incredible. So I award those 5 the Leaders and Best Awards. And now we do have on the line, our friend Tanner is back with us from Blue by 90. Tanner, congratulations for a bunch of reasons.
Yeah.
The Natty, including your wife. Congrats on all of it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Congrats to you on the Natty. Yeah, baby on the way due in July. Kind of crazy to think about. I still think I'm a kid at heart, but yeah, we're ready for it, man. So yeah, it's interesting. I see just a lot of Michigan fans in here. Pretty nice. Oh, real quick, I just realized, hold on. I had the wrong, hold on.
Oh,
My bad. I had the wrong one on. My
oh,
bad.
oh, there you
Sorry
go.
about that, guys. Yeah, I had the old one. I had the last time Michigan won a bowl game a week ago. So yeah, I forgot to switch hats. I don't know what was going on there. 15-0, man. I mean, wow. I don't know what your preseason predictions were. I can't remember, but I called my shot in August and said Michigan was win the national championship, and went out 15-0, the best team all year, the most dominant team all year, the team that made the least amount of mistakes against 12 Power 5 teams. I think 3 turnovers and 35 penalties. I mean, they play clean football. They play tough, physical, hard-nosed football like a team from the Midwest would. And they went out and got it done, man. Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum, both go over 100. Like, I don't know, man. I don't really know how to handle myself. Like, it's still sort of surreal at this moment.
Yeah,
I told my wife, I was like, I feel just as happy as when Michigan beats Ohio State. Like, it doesn't feel elevated yet. I know it probably will down the road, but at this point, I'm just soaking it in, man. This team just went out and handled their business all year long, every single week, no matter the distractions, no matter, the media making a mountain out of an anthole, right? Like, no matter how many times things were thrown at Michigan, they persevered, they fought through it. They were the best team, led by the best coach in college football, and we're sitting here at the pinnacle of college football. It feels great.
Yeah, Tanner. I mean, you have to. This is why Jim Harbaugh got my top leader and best coaching award, because how good of a coach do you have to be to instill a culture where you can just be out for 6 games and the team continues to win, and not just win, but beat top 10 Penn State, top 10 Ohio State, and then comes back and goes through the national championship. That's a hallmark, I think, of a top coach.
Absolutely. And, we talk a lot about in this sport, a lot of the folks in this industry in college football media talk about recruiting rankings and how important it is when a kid's coming out of high school that some guy at 24/7 or On 3 watch 10 minutes of highlight films and we're like, oh yeah, he's a 5-star. How many guys made plays yesterday that were 3 stars coming out of high school? Jalen Harrell had a hell of a game. You didn't see it on the stat sheet, but he was a monster. Mike Sainristil. Kenneth Grant had a sack.
Yep.
Carson Barnhart was a 3-star. Like, all these guys made massive plays. And Michigan, to your point about Jim Harbaugh, if you look at the 24/7 talent composite overall for each team, Michigan's 14th. Nobody else had been outside the top 4. Like, this was an impressive coaching job, not just on game days or throughout the week, but in identifying talent in places that people aren't willing to go. Mason Graham was committed to Boise State. By the way, that kid won LA Times Player of the Year. Like, that's Bryce Young, I'm pretty sure, won that award. Like, I don't know how he was. I mean, he ended up a 4-star, but he plays like a top 10 player in his class. Colson Loveland, somewhere in Idaho. I can't even tell you the name of the town. They go out and find him, and what does he do? He makes a massive catch and run when Michigan needed it most, gave the Wolverines a shot in the arm, set up a Blake Corum touchdown to go up by 2 scores. Like, all these unheralded guys come together, and it's true, man.
Ernest Hausman.
Absolutely.
Ernest Hausman, 3-star.
Josiah Stewart was fantastic, by the way. There's a lot of subtle things that he did in the run game. Like, there was one time where they had a pulling guard that he took on, and it turned to, I thought he was going to be able to get a first down. It maybe was a 1-yard gain. I mean, there's so many guys all over the field making massive plays for Michigan. And it just comes back to building a team. And they play as a team. And they play for one another. And they play for Michigan. And they play for everybody that's ever worn the winged helmet, that's rooted for, that's gone to Michigan. Like, it's just such a community-driven team of guys. And it's just, I think this is, obviously we're Michigan fans, we're happy, but you take a step back, like, Michigan doesn't have 25 stars. They don't go out and pay $2 million for every 5-star recruit like some teams do down south. Like, they put together a team by being great talent evaluators, by having great development and great coaching, and they won a national championship.
Yeah, I was talking about this with Tony Altimore. We did a makeup show on Friday night because I've been dealing with tonsillitis, which is not fun. Don't
No.
recommend. But I did push through to do a show Friday night, and Tony and I were talking about this, and like the fact that there were, two 5 stars, because JJ was like some 4, some 5. Donovan Edwards was some 4, some 5. So I just said 2 5 stars, and none on the Washington side. And like, what does that mean for college football? Is this an aberration year, or is this the beginning of actually rewarding good scouting and good player development and strength and conditioning and kind of these things over just using 247 as a shopping list?
Yeah, I think it's maybe showing how the transfer portal can create parity in college football as well as NIL. Now, I'm not a fan of where either of those are in the sport at the moment. Like, I have a lot of grievances with it. I'm all for players earning compensation off of their name, their image, and their likeness. But when you're able to just go tamper with guys currently enrolled at a school with no repercussions, like, I have a problem with that. But I do think it goes to show that you can't just hoard talent at a school now. You can't just take guys to spite your rival, as some folks have done here in the Big Ten. You can't just hoard all the 5 stars. They're going to play as a redshirt junior and then go to the NFL. Like, guys want to play right away. They want to earn money. They know what the market rate is. So I think you're seeing a disbursement of the talent across college football, right? Like, think about Washington with Michael Penix Jr., transfer coming in from Indiana, program-changing guy. You could say the same about Bo Nix at Oregon, right? You say the same thing about Quinn Ewers at Texas. So I think it is something where you're going to see more parity, which is a good thing. Now, they've got to clean a lot of this up. Like, let's be real. Like, a lot of the things that I've heard and I've seen, like, I don't love where college football is heading with some of this stuff. But I do think that it creates a more level playing field in terms of you can't just have 95 5 and 4 stars unless you're Alabama and Georgia, right? But like, a lot of those guys are going to go elsewhere and go find playing time. And they're going to go find an NIL deal that's going to pay them 6 figures. So you're going to have more equal talent spread out amongst the Power 5 teams than ever before, I think. Because I think that money well, too, is going to dry up at some point. Like, there's no return on the investment. Like, these boosters are just paying loads of money for a guy to commit. And it's like, he may transfer after a year. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. And I will say, since we're on the topic, great job, Champion Circle.
Yeah.
But they're up past 650K now. Their goal's $1 million.
Yeah, so that's just for like the fundraiser, but I believe they put out a statement that they're at over $5 million, because I know there was some private fundraising done in Houston as well. So things are starting, the money cannons are starting to circulate for Michigan now, which is great.
Yes, and I think it was Chris Ballas writing a story about before it was a sticking point to ask donors for NIL. Why was it a sticking point? Who made it a sticking point that they wouldn't do that? Like, it makes sense that you're going to want to fill the coffers of NIL to, we have some of the richest alumni, some of the richest business owners. To think, like, now, I think with President Ono there, enough people have said, hey, please fix NIL. And I think he's heard that. And it sounds like he is asking the donors now for NIL, which is it sounds like for whatever reason, it took a few years for them to start doing that.
Man, I know folks in that space. There's been a lot of handicaps put on. A lot of people like to crap on Valiant and Champion Circle. They're doing everything they can, man. I can tell you that. They're doing everything that they can.
I think they are.
And so they've been kind of hamstrung by some of the decision-making within the athletic department. I don't know. Like, I don't know if, like, people just thought this was going to continue with no effort as far as winning Big Ten championships and now winning a national championship, which feels fucking amazing to say, by the way, John. Sorry, pardon my French, but it feels so good.
Please. General warning, get your kids out, because there's going to be some F-bombs.
Hey, no, I'm good now. I had to get it out. It just feels so damn amazing to say that. But like, I don't know if folks thought that was just going to continue without any effort or without any fundraising. Like, I don't really know. I've never done development, but I'd love to be involved in some way, somehow. Like, sales is sales, right? So if there's anything that I'd like to sell in my career, it's Michigan athletics. I think that'd be a pretty fun gig, man. So, but no, I think for Michigan, kind of getting off their rear ends a little bit, getting out of their own way of the traditional thinking of this is Michigan, this is how we do things. Jim's been asking, like he's been at different fundraising events during the offseason last year in 2023. Like, it's been a struggle, but I mean, if they can raise 5 million in a week, like I think Roman Wilson's comments probably will open some eyes of like, hey, we can't just sit here, rest on our laurels, and think that this is going to continue. You need talent to win championships. So, yeah, that's a whole nother conversation that I don't really want to have right now because Michigan.
We could do a whole show on that, and we will, because we have a whole postseason, a whole 8 months now to talk about all kinds of things like that. But we do have a game to discuss, and speaking of donations, we do have 2 super chats that I want to cover, and then we'll get back to Leaders and Best Awards. Moose, $10. Penix is a sore loser. He was saying he didn't think there was anything special about Michigan and that that Washington beat themselves. Lol. Our D held the number 1 offense to 301 yards and only 255 passing. Let me just quickly say, if I'm Penix, I'm not feeling so great right now. Like, he's injured. He just lost the national championship. I see why he's upset. Like, imagine you're Penix, Tanner. That's gotta, and you got trucked at the end of that game. You had to stay, you stayed in the game.
Yeah, I mean, when you play in a game and you bust your ass all year long and your season ends, it's not fun, right? So, that kid's a competitor. He's a warrior. Maybe throw a little credit, maybe some flowers Michigan's way. But the only defense that was able to do that. We talked about it on some of the other shows that I've done recently, where Arizona State kind of laid the blueprint out, right? Like, you don't just sit back with 2 deep safeties and let him pick you apart. You get after him, especially when they're starting a redshirt freshman at center who's 275 pounds. You let your interior D lineman get after it. And that's what Michigan did. I mean, how many times did he have an offensive lineman in his lap? I mean, did he break a rib? Like, it looked like, he had to have done something to his ribs. Like, he just got obliterated in that game. So, I understand being frustrated, but, you didn't beat yourselves. Michigan beat the snot out of you. And that defensive front and that secondary were monsters all night long. Like, how many times did Michigan get pressure, force him into a bad throw? Think about the big miss that he had on 4th down. I don't know if that was to Adunze or I can't remember who that throw was to, but he was wide open right where there's the bust where Mike Samuels doesn't go with him. That throw, I think, is off because one is he's trying to get it to the sideline to give him more room to run because if that's done correctly, that's probably a touchdown. But I also think that maybe that was a little bit off because of the amount of pressure that he had been feeling all night long to that point. So you get a lot of pressure. Michigan only had 1 sack, but all those QB hurries, those QB hits, and the sack, like that starts to kind of trickle into your mindset and your clock as a quarterback, your internal clock. So I thought Michigan was a lot of the reason that they struggled on offense, right? Like, yeah, they missed a couple shots here or there, but that defense was lights out. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah. I think it was to Odunze. And I have, we predicted this. So I predicted this on, I was on a show called The Big Ten Show with Justin Adams, who also hosts Nebraska at the Voice of College Football, with Mark, and Sonny Varma, who does the Illini cast. And my prediction was that because their running back was injured, I kind of predicted, it's not like it was that galaxy brained of a prediction, but that they would hang everybody back. They would just go front 4, interior D line to try to push Penix, but then also hang a bunch of people back because they're not running very effectively with their top running back at 50%, which, maybe he was like 75. I mean, he was better than I thought he was going to be after only a week of rest and how trucked he got in the last game. I thought he did very well, actually. But that strategy of pushing that interior DL into Penix seemed to be pretty effective and nullify as best you can what Penix can do.
Yeah, when you look at the PFF grades over the course of the season, I believe that was their worst by far pass pro grading from Pro Football Focus. I mean, the Michigan guys were after him all night long. I mean, and they did a great job. He didn't really have any opportunities to step up and scramble. There was a lot of missed throws from Penix because of the pressure that Michigan was able to bring. I thought the defense, I mean, maybe the best defensive performance Michigan's had in my lifetime as far as being able to watch the games. Like, I know 97 had some doozies, but I mean, that's a team that was, I don't know, because I think when I look at the team that Washington was throughout the course of the season, like there were moments where they weren't a juggernaut on offense, right? Sure. But against Texas, I mean, Penix made every throw, even in coverage. Like there were
he
some
looked
dimes,
ridiculous,
right? So I think a lot of Michigan fans were like, "Uh-oh," but I just, he had a great game. But I just thought back to the whole season as an entire picture, and it's like there were moments where Washington was not great on offense. I mean, they struggled. They played in a lot of close games, and they were able to win. That's what good teams do. They've got a great coaching staff, got a great team. But I always felt going into this game that there was going to be, some moments for Michigan to take advantage of it. And obviously they did with the 2 picks, the sack. Yep. They weren't able to run the ball. Do they not have another running back? Like, I know it was a heroic effort from Dylan Johnson, but
yeah. So Will Nixon, I thought they'd use more. And then they had Jalen McMillan do a running play as well. But I thought Will Nixon was going to be used for more carries than just 2.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Johnson just didn't have any burst or acceleration. Like, you could just tell he wasn't able to make those cuts on that ankle.
Then it's all on Penix. Then it's
right. And they would get into third and long. They would get into third and long scenarios, right? So the defense is able to pin its ears back, and make plays. So, yeah, just a fantastic outing from the defense. I think I've talked about this on the show before, but if not, I'm just going to, kind of rehash it real quick. So one of the things that I want to do, when I get kind of a man cave in the basement, is I've always wanted to have some jerseys hung. And so my thought always was going to be Blake Corum, JJ McCarthy, and Aiden Hutchinson. You know who's got to be in there now, right?
Sanderstill?
Absolutely. You got to have Agent Zero on there. Like, he's got to be on that Mount Rushmore of these Michigan teams. So he was already a Michigan legend. I mean, if he left last year for the NFL, he'd have been a Michigan legend, but just cemented himself as one of the all-time greats. I mean, just every time you need a play, Mike Sainristil is there. That guy is a pure football player. He's tough. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he plays like it. And he is a phenomenal, selfless team guy. He played receiver for 3 years, switches to nickel. I think he's the best nickel corner in the draft in the country. And what he's done for this program can't be understated. I mean, he is part of why Michigan is the national champion in 2023. It just doesn't get old, John. I love saying it. It just rolls off the tongue very nice. It's like velvety when you say
Michigan national champions.
It's just unbelievable, man. I mean, so many guys that you could point to. I mean, I can't remember if we talked about this after the Ohio State game, but Quentin Johnson, a guy who stuck around, could have left. I mean, has made big plays. He made a huge play in the Rose Bowl, big pass breakup in the Ohio State game. Think about Trente Jones, could have transferred, could have left, could have said, I want to get more playing time. He stuck it out, and he is a national champion and played his ass off the last 2 games at right tackle. 2.5 games, 2 games and a quarter. He was phenomenal at the end of the Ohio State game, coming into right tackle in relief. There's so many guys that I could mention, and I could go on and on about it, but this team is just so special. I mean, so many guys that contribute so much.
I've picked 7 and then the entire O-line, and I probably could have said the D-line too. But, starting with JJ, and even though, you can say, well, he didn't have he wasn't lighting it up. He didn't have 300, 400 passing yards. He led the offense and made plays when he needed to make plays, including with his legs. He didn't make any bad mistakes, interceptions, things like that. And he led this team confidently. He said when he came into the university, he was going to do everything he could to beat Ohio State, everything he could to win the Big Ten, and everything he could to win a national championship. And last night, he fulfilled that last promise.
Absolutely, man. I mean, just you tip your cap to these guys. Just unbelievable players, an unbelievable team. First title in 26 years. It just, I don't have to hear split title ever again.
Yeah.
You know how nice that is, John? And I don't know if you noticed, but I asked my wife if she could bring me a glass of water earlier, and this was not intentional. We just have a ton of different sports cups from different stadiums, and so this is the one that I have. I don't know what. I don't know if you can see it. It's like there you go. So that's what so
football.
I don't have to hear about that ever again because I don't care. This is undisputed 15-0. Only one of 4 teams to go 15-0 in the college football playoff era.
Yep.
They took care of business, man.
Yeah, you know who hasn't gone 15-0 in the Big Ten?
Ohio State. Anyone,
but Ohio State. I was particularly thinking about.
Yeah.
But thank you, badass Buckeye, for saying a nice thing. There is actually a decent chunk of Buckeyes who are part of the Voice College football community who have been pretty cool. Not everybody's like cheater and all this other stuff. Some are actually being cool, and badass Buckeye is definitely one of them. So we appreciate that. But just JJ gets an award. How about Donovan Edwards making his return? 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. And yeah, the O-line had to open up those holes and open up those, for him to do that. But we saw the old Don coming back.
I mean, what more can you say about the kid? I mean, obviously frustrated with his year. I mean, he doesn't show it, but deep down the kid's a competitor. He had a great year in 2022, some big time moments, and it just didn't go his way, man. It just wasn't happening. And he never once publicly ever complained. He was kind of upset during the IU game, but guess what? He got himself a touchdown later in that game. And I honestly think it's more admirable to be upset about the situation. If he is, I don't know, but I have to imagine he's upset about just, the lack of success, right?
Sure.
But I think it's even more admirable, honorable, whatever adjective you want to use, to internally be upset about something and not show it. Like that takes a lot of a lot of emotional maturity, a lot of resolve, to be that selfless and not let it affect your teammates. Because all you've heard all year long is how great of a teammate he is. Every time he gets in front of the mic, he's shouting out his O-line. He's shouting out Blake Corum. Just a special kid to come through Michigan. And, he didn't have a great
Blake Corum when he was in the weight. Remember, he was benching, and Donovan was the first one cheering him on.
Absolutely. I mean, he's just a special kid, man. And so, for everything that he kind of went through, I mean, he already was a Michigan legend because of the 2022 Ohio State game, the plays he made when Blake was gone, right? But then he went and cemented himself again, just like a lot of these guys did. But that's a guy who, when you look back on this team, you're very glad that he was on these last 3 teams because he made a lot of big-time plays. He was a big contributor in a lot of wins that Michigan's had, 40 to be exact, over the last 3 seasons, 15 this year, John. I don't know if everyone knows that Michigan won 15 football games this season, but
15 football games and 0 losses.
I've been tweeting 15-0 in August for the last 10 years, I think, since the College World Playoff was a thing. So feels good to finally get there and get it done in the last season of the 4-team playoff, man. So there's not really much more I can say about these guys. They're just super grateful. I mean, I went to 9 games this year. I went to the game in Arizona last year against TCU. I experienced that loss in person, and it was all worth it. Every heartbreaking moment, not that there've been a lot because Michigan's lost 3 games since the start of 2021. But every moment that's led up to this being a Michigan fan that's been difficult to deal with, this season has made it all worth it. Trouble with the snap, JT short,
Yep.
Like all of it, man. It's so worth it, so gratifying, and I can only imagine how the players feel. And I know right now, they're getting home to Ann Arbor and being greeted by a bunch of fans on the athletic complex on campus. So I can only imagine how awesome that's going to be. And yeah, man, just a special group of guys that made me very proud to be a Michigan fan, made me very proud to live in Ann Arbor, very proud to be from the state of Michigan, because they just did it the right way. These guys just they went about their business. You know, they played just so hard, played just very physical, tough, nasty, like all the stuff that I love. But at the end of the day, they're going to pat you on the back and say, "Good game." Like that's the kind of group that they are, man.
Absolutely. And I also awarded Blake Corum a leader in best for this game. He's gotten a leader in best award. He might be the only one who's gotten a leader in best award in every single episode of Michigan Wolverines Live, because of just how he's just so automatic. He's so like, he chose to come back. He said it in the conference last night. He came back for this. He came back to win the national championship. He didn't come back to beat Ohio State again. We did that. He didn't come back to win the Big Ten again. We did that. He came back to win it all.
Do you remember? Because I think Barstool tweeted it at the time and then they retweeted it. There was a basketball game in Chrysler against Nebraska that, again, my wife's a Nebraska grad. So her and I go to the game and, you know, we're talking to some of our friends and the football guys, a lot of them come out. Trevor Keegan, Blake Corum, like there was a ton of dudes there. Chris Jenkins was there, like so many different guys, Mason Graham. And so it was like, I think it was like February maybe. So it was right after everybody announced they were coming back. And so they get out onto the court, they're throwing t-shirts. And then, so here's a little tidbit. So they give the microphone to Blake Corum. Blake didn't know he was about to give a speech. Okay. Like nobody prepped him. Like, I don't know where the lines of communication were crossed here, John, but Blake had no idea that he was giving a speech to Chrysler Center at halftime of a basketball game. Oh, but no, he goes out and says, we're going to go and win a national championship. And guess what that man does? He rushes for 27 touchdowns, 1,200 and some yards, breaks the all-time scoring record, and has one of the greatest individual seasons that a Michigan player's ever had on his way with his team to go win the national championship in Houston. Like, it's just poetic. Like, it gives me goosebumps, man. The fact that I was at that basketball game and I got to hear that speech and I'm like, oh man, if we can do it, John, if these guys can do it this year and then they go out and do it and they're the best team by far in the country. They beat 5 ranked teams their last 6 games. They beat number 2. They beat number 4. They beat whatever Ohio State ended up ranked. Yeah. Not that high, by the way. Oh. But they go and they beat 11 at Ohio State again. They beat Penn State on the road. They smoke Iowa. Like, man, it feels good, man. Like, I just really can't.
Only 10th. Only 10th, Ohio. What's wrong with you?
Hey, man. You know, sometimes you're not ranked in the top 4, you know, and that's okay. It's all right. But yeah, just a special group of guys, man, that went out and as the kids say, stood on business. They stood on that business. I don't know if the kids say it like that, but I mean, they went out there and they took care of that. So yeah, just an unbelievable season, man. I had a great time coming on these every single week. I can't wait to get to the next one. I know we'll probably have a lot of stuff to talk about throughout the offseason. So, but man, it feels damn good to be a Michigan Wolverine right now.
It is great to be a Michigan Wolverine. I've been blasting all day, and people are probably looking at me in the cars next to me, but I've been blasting the Victors and Mr. Brightside all day long.
Oh yeah. No, hey, Aaron. Yeah, no, Michigan did beat Alabama. My bad. I forgot about that one. There's too many wins, bro. I can't even keep them all straight, man. There's too many wins. There's 15 of them. I can't even count to 15. There's too many wins to keep track of. But hey, John, man, it's been so much fun coming on here, man. We dealt with a lot of bullets, a lot of strays, a lot of direct shots, and look who came out on top.
Absolutely, Tanner. Any final thoughts for us, and then let people know where they can find you.
Man, everybody that interacted all year, is such a blast coming on the show for the first time. Kind of made it a regular thing, which is great. I feel like we're almost like, I know you're the big dog, but like I feel like kind of a co-host at times, which is a lot of fun, man. So, it was a lot of fun
Doors
coming
always
on.
open.
Yeah, I'm just glad we're not like previewing like UNLV anymore. You know what I mean? Like Michigan's gonna roll these guys. Like that first part of the season, John, was always funny because it's like, what can you tell us about Nebraska? And I'm like, Michigan's gonna win by 40, man. I don't know.
Yep. That was tough. And I brought on all the media guests and everybody to try to give their perspective on you do what you can.
Absolutely.
It's big J journalism. Yes. That's what we try to do here at the Voice of College Football.
But, absolutely, John. Well, you guys do a great job, man. Yeah, I hope you got to enjoy it last night. We went to downtown Ann Arbor. There's people honking, mobs of people just screaming, high-fiving, people sitting on their windowsill in their vehicle is in the back seat. I don't know how smart that was. People were like running up to cars, dapping people up. Like it was a crazy scene. I went to the Big House last night about 2 a.m., by the way, after a few shots. We walked there and I ended up Ubering home from Michigan Stadium. But man, it was surreal, man. The Block M and the light, like it was. I don't know how many people were able to do that last night, that live in Ann Arbor, but I did, and it was probably one of the coolest things I've done. So,
dude, I would have 15-0 to teleport to Ann Arbor or to Houston,
man.
But here I am in Florida with tonsillitis, and otherwise I would have taken a flight somewhere. One of the two.
Hey, man, it was unbelievable. I hope you feel better, but you got that Florida weather, you got a little, although I just saw you guys had some tornadoes. So I don't know what's going on down in Florida, but hey, man, last thing I'm going to just say 15-0 national champs. I'm rambling. I don't care. You can find me on Twitter at Tanner Wu-Tang. You can check us out at blueby90.com. Check out North Peak Brewing. Follow us at blueby90. Check out our podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google, I think all the podcasts, man. But everybody go blue. Appreciate y'all. We did that shit.
Yes, we did. Who's got it better than us?
Nobody, baby.
Nobody. Tanner, thanks as always for
appreciate
being
you, buddy.
Here.
Yep.
Okay, everybody. We're gonna keep rolling on topics, and then we do have a couple of calls. And I'm gonna zip through these pretty quick. We already talked about the defense masterclass. I had predicted that this was what was going to happen, but I thought Penix would get more yards, kind of like Stroud in 2022. Ohio State, he went for about 350. I was thinking Penix would get like 300, 350, maybe 3 touchdowns. And I thought that would, then we could counteract with our defense and with our offense and what we can do with JJ. It turned out to actually be better than I thought. Holding Penix to 255, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. As with Alabama, the offense made the plays when it counted the most, late in the 4th and OT. Of course, we did have those amazing runs in the beginning as well. But in the 4th, Michigan showed that they're the best team in the country. No OT, actually. Why did I put that? But yeah, I basically copied and pasted. So it says OT, but we didn't need OT this time because we won by 21 points. Also, we do have to cover this. 2 other topics. And then we're going to get to calls. This is Big J journalism here at the Voice of College Football. So we're going to talk about it for a second. Will Jim Harbaugh go to the NFL? Let us know in chat what you think. I think he is. I think he's going to the Raiders. I think he's going to draft J.J. McCarthy, number 11, in the draft. Sharon Moore has been kind of groomed to take over as the head coach of the team here at the Michigan Wolverines. So Sharon Moore can tackle the front on the Michigan side, and then Harbaugh can go to the Las Vegas Raiders and turn them into the Las Vegas Wolverines because of the talent that he'll be able to draft. If he stays, even better, right? He said about spring was going to be pushed back till March, which people think maybe that was a sign he was staying. Either way, he's earned the right to go chase a Super Bowl or to stay or do whatever the hell he wants because he got us a national championship. And then 2 more things. Hey, anybody who's making the idiotic statement that the NCAA is going to vacate the national title, they can't do it. I have heard this 3 million times since last night. The NCAA does not have the sole authority to vacate the national title. It is the authority of the College Football Playoff Committee, as well as the NCAA, as well as the Associated Press. It's called the Consensus National Champion. What does consensus mean? It means more than one. It means everybody says that they are the national champions. So the NCAA cannot vacate the title. So want to debunk that regardless of what happens with the investigation. And my final thought before I bring on calls. Celebrate. Enjoy this. Do what you want to do to celebrate. Blast Mr. Brightside and the victors like I did. Just enjoy. And go blue, man. And let's bring on our first call. We've got Michigan Ben in the house. Michigan Ben, go blue.
Go blue, John. I would ask you how you doing, but I don't even need to do that, my friend.
Oh, I'm fantastic. They said we couldn't do it, and we're 15-0. As Tanner said, that feels so good to say. 15-0 and national champions. What's your take?
Well, hey, Mark was saying 7%, Daria was saying 1%. All the other people on here were giving us a lot less credit than I think we deserved. And they went and proved it. They went and proved us. Michigan went and out and proved it. They were the best team, and I don't even think there should be a doubt. That's the one thing I was watching, man. I was watching Mark a little bit. I was rewatching what you guys were, what Mark was putting on last night, and people are already trying to, discredit Michigan, trying to say, well, they might not be the best team. I can't give very much validity to that. I mean, I just don't agree. There's some arguments to be made, but Michigan was by far the most consistent team throughout the whole season, and the most dominant defensive team. There's just too many things that stack up against any argument that you're going to make that way. I mean, it's just crazy. I love it though. It means we hit a nerve. We're not bitter. We're just better.
Absolutely, Ben. Well, soak it in, embrace it. And we appreciate you always coming by and supporting Voice of College Football.
Yeah, I wanted to get on the show. Last night and talk. I'll tell you what happened. I'm watching. So I live in Tennessee, and I live up on a mountain, and I have this like long mile long road that I'm on this mountain, and we had this windstorm that went through, and I'm watching the game, and I'm just hoping our power doesn't go out, because a little tree comes down and the power goes out. Well, we get the whole game. I watched the whole game, and I just start getting to the after game stuff, and the power goes out. And I was just like, oh my goodness, it held off.
Hey,
it held off. So we were happy. And I'll tell you what, as far as like where Harbaugh's going, the vacated natty, I don't care about that right now. We can talk about that next week. I'm telling you, we're winners this week, and nothing's going to diminish my joy for this season.
Hey, I had to cover it for 3 minutes because this is big J journalism here. But yeah. We did 52 minutes on who's got it better than us, and the fact that Michigan is 15-0, and just soak it in, Ben. Just soak it in.
Yeah, what an accomplishment! What an accomplishment we had. Oh wow! Hey, man. I'll tell you, I love. Did you watch any of Harbaugh's interviews?
Oh yeah. Well,
today?
My favorite, and then I got to let you go because I got 2 more callers. Okay. But my favorite was when he's asked about his future, and he says, I'd like to have one. I'd like to have a future. I'd like to have it tomorrow. I love that. It just cracks me up because he knows what they're trying to get at, and he's just letting this be the celebration, and we'll get back to that.
I'll tell you what. He had a couple. I watched I watched the press, and he like the press interview that he had this morning. Press conference with Will Johnson and Blake Corum next to him, and he pretty much let the NCAA have it. We seen that, and then
we're innocent. Great. Yeah, we're innocent. That's what he said.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically, and I enjoyed that. Then he had another. I forget the guy that he had a one-on-one interview. I thought that was a really good interview, a little bit more personable. Part of Hardball, he wasn't trolling him as much, but it was great. Loved it. I'll let you have the next caller, but I'm gonna just leave you with this. Go Blue.
Go Blue, Ben. Thank you so much for stopping by. And next caller up, we have a friend of the program, host of the Jacksonian. It's Jackson Johnson. Welcome to Michigan Wolverines Live.
Thank you for having me on, John, and congratulations on this momentous national championship of the 2023 season.
Boy, I'll tell you, it has been, and I want to thank you for being part of our Alabama panel so we could learn more about the Crimson Tide. That was really great. But Jackson, you mentioned it in chat. The first consensus national championship for Michigan since the 40s. I, of course, say also that 97 was Michigan won the national championship because they have a trophy in their building. They have a national championship trophy. So they won it in 97, but this one is a consensus, as in every outlet, everything, and of course the College Football Playoff Committee, have all declared Michigan the national champion.
Well, and I will say, for some of the people watching, if you look back at some of the past episodes during the preseason, I was saying in the chat, I was like, I don't want to call it early, but I think Michigan's going to win it all. There's a reason Blake Corum returned for the 2023 season, and it was moments like this.
Absolutely. You got a shout out from my mom, who says, love Jackson. So there you go. That's my mother, who, by the way, for those of you who don't know, helped us secure our intro song, which we play every episode, from David Martinez. It's a song called Fast and Hard. And if you, there is a link in every description where you can go check out David Martinez's music, if you like that little snippet. So wow. Thanks, Lady Lake, for the comment there. Jackson, you've studied, this sport, and you and I always say this, but you and Will and Jeffrey, you guys, really dive into the history, about stuff from the 50s and 60s and all these things, and it's it's pretty impressive. I mean, where do you think this ranks in terms of Michigan's accomplishments historically?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I would say it ranks higher than some of the earlier national titles, before the Great Depression and in the 40s. I mean, for me, this is my number one national championship season for Michigan. I mean, it's the only Michigan team that's 15-0. So,
yeah,
I mean, that.
And you know what's even sweeter about all this is that Ohio State has never been 15-0.
Yeah.
So just another reason to just enjoy this even more. I mean, to be fair, Jackson, there was no room for error. We had to go 15-0. Oh. If Michigan had lost a single game by 1 point, I don't believe that the College Football Playoff Committee would have put us in, given everything that's going on with the investigations and everything else. I know they said they wouldn't factor it in, but with so many teams like, going undefeated and going one loss, you got your Georgias, your Bamas, your Florida States, your Washingtons, your Oregons. There were so many that were up there. I don't think Michigan had any room for error. They had to go completely undefeated. What do you think, Jackson?
I agree, because I mean, for some that are watching, if you look back on some of my appearances on the Ocho, I always said during that time, during the last few weeks of the regular season of the Ocho, I said, look, if Michigan loses, they're out of it. But if Ohio State loses, they still have a shot at the playoff race. So that's what I always talked about. But I didn't want to mention too much about the Harbaugh stuff last night, because it's like, I want Michigan Nation to enjoy their victory. But you mentioned a little while ago that Harbaugh is going to go. You believe he's going to go to the Raiders, but I mean, if you're Harbaugh and you have to go to the NFL, the three choices are Raiders, Titans, Chargers. Which would you choose?
Well, I haven't really looked at the Titans because that just happened. I was actually surprised they fired Vrabel. I've looked at the Chargers and the Raiders. But I want to start with the option, because there is the option that Harbaugh stays. And the evidence that people are pointing to is the on Scott Van Pelt. He was saying how they're going to move practice back from February to March. So he's already talking about spring practice. But if you're Jim Harbaugh, Jackson, Jackson, I want you to imagine for a second that you're Jim Harbaugh and you're at the Thanksgiving table with John Harbaugh, with Papa, and Papa's, and John Harbaugh's got that ring. And not only does he have that Super Bowl ring, but he beat you, right? On the literally one play away. You were one play away from winning a Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick, no less. So I think in terms of why I think the Raiders, it's the following things. One, it's all about, and you know this, Jackson, you study the NFL. It's all about relationships with ownership groups. It's all about how do you play ball and how your relationship is with these people. We know that it didn't work out at the 49ers because of the relationships breaking down there.
Yeah.
And so basically at the Raiders, you have a situation where Jim Harbaugh had a great relationship with Al Davis. He has a great relationship with Mark Davis, and Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. is now a minority owner, and he's got a great relationship with Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr., and they even played a little catch together a couple of years ago. There's a great YouTube video about that. With that, you can also draft JJ number 11.
Yeah.
So you can draft JJ. Maybe you could draft Trevor Keegan. Maybe you could draft Blake Corum. Maybe you could draft I don't know, Junior Colson or Michael Barrett or Chris Jenkins. So with that, plus the taxes aren't as bad as California. The ownership is better than California and better than the Chargers.
There's no state taxes in Nevada.
No state taxes. I haven't looked at the Titans, so I can't really chime in on the Titans. But I would say out of the Raiders, the Chargers, and I looked at the Bears as well. For me, it's the Raiders. What about you, Jackson?
Well, for me, it's either the Raiders or Titans. And I looked a little bit at the Titans. They got the second most cap space available for 2024. And their GM has been very good. I mean, Titans Nation has been raving about him, about the job he's done.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a lot better than John Robinson, I can tell you that. And, he comes from 49er Nation. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I would like to see if Harbaugh gets looked at by the Titans. But if they don't, I guess they get either Slovak from the Texans or they get Ben Johnson from the Lions. But
Well,
the
and
Raiders, like you said,
yeah,
that would be the best place for them. Sure as hell isn't the Chargers because they got that Spanos family running the show.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. The ownership group is just much better at the Raiders, and I think they'll let him have the control he wants. But here's the other thing. Allegedly, from what we understand, Michigan is willing to match any NFL offer now. So that and we're talking because Sean Payton got like 17 million a year, didn't he?
Yeah.
So if somebody offers Jim Harbaugh 20 million, guess what? Michigan's going to match it.
Yeah. That's big.
So I mean, and it's look, he's worth it. He won the national title. He beat Ohio State 3 times in a row. Give him whatever the hell he wants. Give him the money for his staff that he wants. Give him the NIL he wants. And try to loosen the academic standards a little bit to let a transfer through like a Xavier Worthy, who went to Texas because his credits didn't go into Michigan. If I think Harbaugh can write his own ticket and Michigan will give him pretty much whatever he wants at this point. So it could go either way.
True. But there is one catch, though. He can't be looking at any NFL offer in 2024.
Yeah. That's the caveat. But like if he agrees to an 8-year deal with 20 million a year, he's probably not going to look at the NFL. He's okay with for 365 days, maybe, taking his 20 million.
There you go.
Yeah, that might like if he decides to stay. So Jackson, final thought for us, and let people know where they can find you.
Well, I will say though, I bet Gizmo's doing his little happy dance. He's just happy thinking about Michigan. Gizmo, what you think about that natty? He's like, John, put the camera back on you.
Yeah, I normally do this show in the business center. I try to make it very professional. But today we had tornadoes. And tornado watch. So I wasn't going to leave Gizmo with the storms and everything. So
I don't
here I am.
It's storming right here over in Bama. It's pouring down rain. It's nerve wracking. There's like thunder. And it's like
So I'll put your channel, Jackson, in the chat here. People should subscribe to Jackson. I've been on his show, the Jacksonian, and you one thing about your channel is that you're able to get guests like the Locked On people, Locked On Patriots, Locked On pretty much everybody, and it's pretty impressive who you're able to pull in. So.
Wait until you see Thursday's next episode. That's going to be a great one. Especially if what happened today in Titan Nation.
Hey, we look forward to it, and I'll definitely make sure I check it out here. Trying to find your link. Did you? If somebody can post Jackson's YouTube, I'm struggling at the moment. But also on Twitter, we got the Twitter right here in the link. But Jackson, thank you so much for coming on to Michigan. Oh, there it is. Appreciate you. So
thank you.
We really appreciate you coming on to Michigan Wolverines Live and being a friend of the show.
Oh, thank you for having me on, man. It's an honor. And congrats on winning your first natty since 1997.
Thanks, Jackson. Have a good one.
You too. Stay away from that storm now.
Absolutely. All right. Coming up next, we've got friend of the program. We got Mike Fort in the house.
Oh no, I legally changed my name to National Champs.
Oh, I'm sorry. National Champs. Tanner was right when he said earlier, it just doesn't get old. Michigan is national champions. And I like even better, consensus national champions.
Yeah, kind of puts a middle finger to the 97 split title.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I count that as a full title and we have a trophy. So, we have a national championship trophy in our cabinet or whatever you want to call it, trophy case. So Mike, what was your take on the game and kind of your thought?
I was just surprised. I mean, I knew that. I mean, I really thought that we kind of slayed the giant with Bama. I mean, I really didn't think that this game would be too much in doubt. I don't like to take things for granted.
Yeah.
But I was kind of surprised because, I mean, Texas has a pretty bad secondary, but their front is really stout. And even they couldn't really get to Penix like we could. And I really thought that Texas was just as good, if not better, on the front four. I mean, T'Vondre Sweat is an absolute beast.
Yeah, I mean, what struck me is number one, Penix being limited to 255. I mean, that was my first surprise because I thought he would be limited to about 350. I kind of was thinking, for some reason, Washington fans had said, yeah, you've never seen an offense like this. And I'm like, we literally just faced last year CJ Stroud, Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Cade Stover, like a pretty ferocious passing attack. And CJ Stroud put up like 100 more yards than Penix did in this game. But that was what I kind of and my other comeback was also you guys haven't faced a defense half as good as that. I mean, the closest was Oregon, I think at like 22nd, and Michigan's first. So like, it kind of went both ways there.
And I would argue that we still hadn't seen an offense like Ohio or Washington, because at least Ohio State could run the ball too.
Right. Yeah.
They
The
got
run game,
46 yards on the ground. I mean,
the run game was rough. And to be fair, Dylan Johnson was running at about half speed. I thought the fact that he showed up in the game as much as he did, and also made a big man block too on that so he made a big man block, and they used him as much as they could to keep the offense to keep us honest, basically. But given how blasted he got in that last game, I'm surprised he had 11 carries and was in the game as much as he was.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, and I think he probably been okay, except he, got that ankle re-aggravated when I can't remember who it was, but it's one of our big D linemen landed on his leg, his upper ankle, and I guess that kind of inflamed it a little bit.
Yeah, and then obviously, Penix got lit up also towards the end. He was holding his ribs, it was not a great game for injuries for the Washington side.
Yeah, I was told. I mean, I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I was told he had 2 broken ribs.
Oh, geez.
And like not a dislocated shoulder, but I guess he had some sort of shoulder injury as well. Now, I mean, this wasn't before the game. This was what we did to him.
Yeah, and I will say, Penix making the comments he made, I don't begrudge him for that. And honestly, like, game recognized game. He's one of the best quarterbacks. He had a rough time against Michigan's defense, but he still put up a bunch of yards. And I understand why he's upset. I'm not going to begrudge him his comments. Like, he can say what he wants to say. We know that we beat Washington by 21 points. So, like, we know. Like, this wasn't a game where the refs, like, people are saying the refs. Yeah, okay, you can say the refs if it's a 3-point win. You could say the refs if it's a 10-point win. You can't say the refs if it's a 21-point win.
Well, there was holding. I mean, and if you want to get down to the brass tacks of it,
Yeah.
if there was every hold was called, every game would last 7 hours and there'd be 80 flags on every game. So this whole, it was holding. It's bull. Like on that one, I think it was Will Johnson when Odunze got. I mean, he might have grabbed a little bit of jersey, but the thing is that usually on the passing games, unless the hold is egregious or it actually interferes with the receiver making the catch, it's probably not going to be held, or it's not going to be called for a hold. It's got to really have a bad optics. Just touching somebody's jersey, that's not going to get a flag, because if that was the case, then everything's fair game.
Yeah, basically what I noticed the refs were calling for holds is when a guy actually fell down.
Yeah.
Like if somebody got pushed down, that got called. But if it was just like a grab, it didn't get called from either team.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, or if, I mean, you had like, your arms extended with a handful of jersey and the guy's, 2 feet out there, with your jersey getting stretched to a 5X, that I can understand being called. I mean,
Yeah.
just because, somebody, grazes your jersey or, puts your hands on you in a way that doesn't really affect the play, keep the flag in your pocket, which is what they did.
And look, it is the national championship game. Let them play. And they have before. If you remember Clemson 2016, they were holding and they even had a pick play. So like, yeah, I'm glad they let him play. For the most part, they let him play unless it was egregious, which is, I think, for the national championship game, that's what they should have done.
Yeah, no ref is gonna, call LeBron James for a charge on the last 10 seconds of a game. They're gonna swallow the whistle.
Yeah,
you don't really want to let referees decide a game, especially because, last year when you had that, terrible overturn of Roman Wilson's catch. I mean, the referee does his job whenever you don't know he's doing it.
Yeah. Well, there is a contrary view that I'm going to bring in now to that. We have Sean Garner, one of our reasonable Buckeyes, who's a member of the Voice of College Football community and is regularly on the Ocho here at the Voice of College Football. I'm going to bring him in to give his point on the refs and anything else he wants to talk about. Sean, thanks for stopping by the Hornets' Nest, enemy territory, Michigan Wolverines Live.
Okay, I don't mean to make too big a deal about the refs because I don't think they were determined last night. They weren't great. And I mean, like when you miss calls, that is as impactful. I mean, that makes as big of a difference as when you throw flags that aren't there. And I'm sure Washington got away with
I was getting to say that.
A fair amount of their things last night. But some of the shots that I did see against Michigan, yeah, those should have been called. I mean, like they should have. And Michigan was the better team last night. I don't care how that game's going to get called. Michigan's probably very likely to win.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was pretty bad for a national stage to let as much go as they did. I mean, that has a huge impact on games.
Well, on the one piece you said, I had said, I told, I think it was Jackson, when Michigan beat Alabama, that I thought, Michigan would probably win 5 out of those 10, and Bama would win 5 out of those 10. In this case, I think Michigan wins 10 out of 10. Maybe 9 out of 10. But
Washington's pretty inconsistent, though. I mean, if you played the Washington team that played last week, it was different. I mean, I think they win. I think they win 7.5 times of 10 if that team shows up. That team did not show up last night, and it was. I mean,
wouldn't you say the defense had something to do with that?
A little bit, but listen, I mean, they did, but they didn't have everything to do with it. Penix was not nearly as accurate last night. When he had those windows, some of the times he rushed. I mean, there was that 4th and 7 play in the second quarter there. They go for it. I think Jalen Polk was open by about 20 yards. He was going to get inside the 5 or get a touchdown. And, I mean, there was nobody around him. And Penix just missed him. That's not defense. They called the play up and they won on that play. And there were a couple others like that. Last week, you can talk about how Texas pass defense is what it is. They could have been playing the Ravens last week. I mean, they were not getting it. Texas secondary was not getting destroyed, not getting beat downfield. Penix was putting the ball into a thimble.
Yeah, it was really. He was making every throw practically.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I mean, Michigan got more pressure than I thought they were going to get in this game. But you know, I mean, so defense definitely does have something to do with it. But Washington, I mean, like they're going to be an inconsistent team because they rely on one guy to carry them.
Well, I mean, guys, you know, they don't play in a vacuum. Like I would say that the one drive where it was fourth down and McCarthy, you know, threw a sideline route, they got tipped. And if he'd have just ran left inside the left tackle, he had another 30-yard run coming his way. But you know, he didn't see that. Just like, you know, you can't count. I mean, that's why I was saying before, you know, this is not Warren Moon in his prime. You know, he's not going to hit every, you know, 30-yard pass and hit the receiver in the hands. That's just not realistic.
I think he's not that far off from that, though. I'm not like he's been really good. Really I mean, he's been really, really good this year.
He's really good, but he's still a college kid. I mean, there are NFL
like
pros.
25, isn't he?
Yeah, he's getting up there. But I mean, there are, you know, NFL Pro Bowlers that can't do that every play.
No. Most of them wouldn't be able to. You throw, I don't know who's the best like deep ball, the most accurate deep ball passer in the league now.
You say, is Aaron Rodgers still count? At one point in time, I'd have said
Mahomes.
I was thinking probably Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think. Yeah, there's not anyone quite like Brady was in his prime, but I mean, like, yeah, they have, those guys have off games too. I mean, those guys have, you know, it's
CJ Stroud is actually
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's, you know, absolutely. So I mean, it was Michigan. But just a quick point on the officiating. Yeah, it definitely, like, it is just a shame that they can't get better officiating for these kind of games, because I mean, national championship. I mean, it was just like that could have been the difference in the game. I mean, it could have it wasn't, and one team was clearly better than the other, but I mean, like that's.
Do you want a title game that's got 30 penalties?
If they're committing 30 penalties, yes. Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. I mean, like if it's just like if it's going to be like, hey, we're all just going to be brutal, vicious thugs out there during the game. You know, if everyone's like targeting on every play, throw as many flags as you have to.
I think the playoffs and the national championship should be much more flag and pocket, unless it's egregious. And they did call the egregious ones, that when somebody not just was grabbed, but like they were like getting thrown down. But otherwise, both teams were allowed to make plays, because this isn't kindergarten. This is the national championship, and both were allowed to run their offense and run their defense. But they did call a few if it was egregious and like blatant. So I didn't have a problem with it personally.
Yeah, and,
I mean, no, it's a.
And not every time a cornerback touches a wide receiver is holding or pass interference, or else, I mean, there's really no point of even having cornerbacks out there, because if it's to the point where, you know, a defensive back looks at a guy and gets a penalty,
they were getting away with more than just.
They really weren't, though. I mean,
they were getting away with. I mean, there were times where you could see like a fistful of jersey.
Well, it's like I was talking
receivers breaking on the ball.
Well, I was talking about that one time where you know, Will Johnson, you know, he grabbed a little bit of Roma Dunze's jersey, but he didn't really affect his route, and it didn't really affect his ability to catch the ball. You let that one go. I mean, if it impedes his ability to make the play, absolutely call the foul. But if it's,
and they did, when it was egregious and when it was impeding, they called it.
And Michigan got hit with a number of defensive holding and pass interference plays. So it wasn't like they were just letting Michigan run wild and just knock receivers down. They were getting called, but they were letting the little stuff go.
I would argue that they let too much go. That's just and I mean, like refs call. I mean, every game gets called differently. Not every you can never call a game that's going to perfectly satisfy everybody. So
I did enough laundry this week. I don't need laundry in my football too. Okay. Michigan went 5 penalties for 45 yards penalized. Washington had 5 penalties for 30 yards penalized. So there were penalties.
Yeah.
So what 5? So they averaged. So were all of Washington's penalties basically just
false starts?
Yeah, they were pre-snap ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so they were just letting them. I mean, 5 for 46. That's not a high average per penalty either. So yeah, they were definitely letting them all out there.
Yeah, and pre-snap penalties are pretty easy to call. There's not a whole lot of judgment on that.
There's no subjectivity. You just they're lined up correctly or they're not. He started earlier or he didn't. Like there's not going to be a lot of variance from one crew to the next.
Yeah,
and how those get called.
I thought there were a couple times where it looked like the right tackle, stepped back a bit. I thought maybe a split second before the ball was snapped, but it wasn't such an point. It's like, okay, get false start, stop that. It wasn't so bad that I was, throwing a fit about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you are, Mike. You are the champions.
So I do have another caller, but I did want to let both of you duke it out on the ref thing. But any other thoughts on the game, Sean?
Oh, no, I thought, more just thoughts on the season. This was, this will be a season for the ages. I mean, this will be in the history books, and it's not just a national championship season. This is going to be something that all of college football lore will be talking about for generations to come. Everything that happened during this season, all of the drama that surrounded this team. And I mean, you just got to give all the credit in the world to Michigan for finding a way and overcoming it. And they won this national championship in a way that I think most people one person who sometimes contributes to this program might have thought was dead in the past. You can't win. You have to have lots of talent, lots of stars, lots of guys that are going to be NFL, Pro Bowlers to win a national championship. Michigan did it a very old-fashioned way this year.
I mean, you need guys that are NFL talent, but they don't have to be 5 stars coming out of high school.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like even like going forward, I mean, Michigan's not going to have a lot of guys that are. I don't think this team has nearly as many guys as the teams that will be in the first 2 rounds or so. Not many of their players are viewed at that level, but they've got a lot of just really good guys, and they play extremely well as a team, and they're super disciplined. They're really, and they're tenacious. I mean, they're just fighters. I mean, that one play, Mike Sanders I remember after dark, I identified him as a key player for Michigan in this game, and he had maybe his best game of his career, stepped up. And then, so, I mean, just.
You know what? I don't know. I think Sanders still, he played a really good game, but he had periods in this Washington game where he struggled a little bit.
Well, that's kind of going to happen. He's got that dog. I mean, he made just outside of like the interception that sealed the game. He made that one tackle on 3rd down that got McMillan's running a crossing route. He follows him all the way across the formation. McMillan catches it perfectly in stride, has just an easy angle. I didn't think there was any chance that he wasn't going to get that 1st down, and Sanders still just dogs him 2 yards short. I mean, that like plays like that are how you win championship games.
I thought that it was the real unsung heroes. I'm talking like, Keon Sabb. I'm talking Josh Wallace. Outside of the one missed tackle from Sabb, it was the names that non-Michigan fans wouldn't know on the secondary that I thought really stepped up.
Yeah. And Sab, he'll probably be a starter next year, right? He'll probably
probably.
I think it's pretty safe bet. So Mike G made a point, which I think is actually a great question, because when I was on the Big Ten show with Justin Adams and Sonny Varma, Sonny brought up, Sonny was the Washington supporter. Like he was saying he was betting on Washington. And he said that the scenario is that Washington wins the toss and then they play first and they establish their style of football, high octane passing, get 7 points on the board quickly, and then do your best to keep Michigan off the board. And then you get the ball back and maybe it's 14-3 going the opposite direction instead of what it was. I was baffled that Washington decided to defer, because I think, Washington had an opportunity to establish their style right away and kind of gain momentum, and they decided to defer when Michigan has the number one defense in the or when Michigan has an offense that's pretty good. So I don't know.
I personally, I think my philosophy is you always defer. I'd rather get that extra possession in the second half. I think second half possessions are more important than first half. But if you're digging into the psychology of it, I can understand like the argument that says, "Hey, But on the flip side of that, you take the ball first and you just plan on scoring, and then you throw three, you get sacked and throw 2 incomplete passes.
Yeah.
You really feel like you're up against it early if that's
true.
Yeah, I know the common knowledge is you always defer, but I think if you're an offensive minded team, it might be better to take the ball first, because especially if it's a team that doesn't have a great history, and Michigan does not have a great history of playing from behind. Michigan has always been the strike first, hold the lead, deflate the ball, run the clock out. When Michigan had to come from behind, it doesn't look very well. Look at TCU last year. I mean, now you could argue that we didn't lose, we just ran out of time. But we were down 21-3 in the TCU game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at some point in time, it starts to mess with your psyche. So, I mean, if you're a team that your offense can go down there and score, I can understand maybe taking the ball. But if you're a balanced team, I say defer.
Yeah, John, what was the biggest deficit Michigan had the entire season? Was it like 3-0 against Penn State?
Probably 3-0.
Or against
Well, it's 7-0 against Alabama if you're counting the.
Oh,
that's right. Yeah.
Oh well,
and then you were down 7.
Yeah, 13-20.
But I don't think you were ever trailing by more than a single possession in a game this entire season. That is absolutely nuts. They might have spent the least amount of time trailing of any team in the past, I don't know, like 30 years, this team. The whole season.
And that was the other thing I noticed, that, people keep saying,
the schedule, but
people keep talking about, usually in these past teams, like 2020 Bama, 2019 LSU, 2021 Georgia, we don't have a dominant team this year. It's like, what in the hell are you talking about? Because I would say that Michigan has been dominant this year. I mean, the only game that we could call was a struggle game was Maryland. And that was on the road against a team that the last few years.
Ohio State wasn't a struggle game.
I don't think it counts as a struggle game.
Ohio State was way closer to winning that game than Maryland was.
I don't consider it a struggle game if the other team is really, really good too. Struggle games are playing like 6-6, 7-5, 4-8 teams that you're supposed to beat. I mean, nobody would. Like now, Georgia beating Auburn by a touchdown. That's a struggle game. Alabama winning,
that makes sense.
But I don't think Georgia beating Missouri by one possession is a struggle game, because Missouri went 11-2 this year. So that in my definition, that doesn't count as a struggle game, because that's a good team. You don't. I mean, in the in the universe where a top team beats another top team by 60 points consistently, I think that's a pretty small universe because there ain't a whole lot of teams doing that. I mean, even if you look back in what I thought was, in my opinion, either one or two of the best teams ever, 1971 Nebraska. I mean, they blew everybody they had out of the water. I mean, just uglified them. But they played number 2 Oklahoma, and I think they won, was it 35-31 or something? I mean, but that was the number 2 team in the country. I mean, are they not dominant because they only beat the number 2 team by 1 possession? I mean, what are we? You can't beat every team by 4 touchdowns, especially other top 10 teams.
The 2019 Ohio State team, until they got to the playoffs that year, they rolled everybody that season. That was the best Ohio State team I think I've ever seen.
And in the 2019 LSU, they narrowly beat Alabama.
That was a bad year to have your best team because there were three just monster titans that year.
Yeah.
So,
Marcus points out that Rutgers was up 7-0.
That's right. Yeah, they scored on a little out pass that went for like 75 yards.
Yeah,
right at the beginning of that game, right?
Yeah, good call, Marcus. I drowned that one out.
And I think that was the game where Sanders still missed a tackle that set him free too.
Yeah. No one's perfect.
All right. Well, we've got a caller in the queue, so we'll do final thoughts, and then we'll let y'all go. So we'll start with Sean. Any final thoughts for us?
Michigan had the best team in the country this year. They earned their national championship. And I'm just going to have to perform an exorcism on myself for saying that right now. I'm just take a nice deep acid bath and pray to the Buckeye gods for forgiveness.
Well, who knows? Y'all might get Mike Vrabel. So
yeah, that's nuts, man. He was the coach of the year 2-3 years ago.
Yep. Dan Orlovsky was saying, "What the hell are they doing?"
I mean, to me, when teams make a move like that, I almost feel like they have something in the works. Like they may have. I don't know who that would be in particular, but you get rid of a guy who's universally recognized as a very high quality coach. Okay, what's the plan? There better be a plan.
Yeah, no clue. I don't know what they're up to. Maybe they've got somebody lined up. Maybe they got Belichick lined up and they've got a trade that they're going to do. Who knows?
That would be trading for a 72-year-old head coach would be something.
I think someone's going to do it if the Patriots decide to can him.
Well, I have no idea why Belichick would even want to do it anymore at this point, but oh well. All right, guys, take care. You're great.
Later, Sean.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Gizmo. Mike, final thought for you, sir.
My final thought is just a Wolverine Nation. Don't let I don't know if you call them naysayers, but don't let the critics and the butthurt crowd take this away from you. Just remember that when they talk about, the holding and the penalties, just dismiss it. Whenever they talk about the asterisk against the no. If they talk about, and if they're dumb enough to talk about anything about vacates, just let them go. They're making themselves out to be stupid. Anybody that knows jack about the NCAA and how they operate, this is not going to be a vacate. I think that they saw how they did Ohio State, and I think they did Ohio State and Tressel dirty to a lot of extent. I don't think they ever go to that length again. There will be no vacates. We're going to have this one on the books. There's no asterisk. We were the best team in 2023. Enjoy it. Get your merch. Be a proud Wolverine because nobody's got it better than us, right?
Nobody.
There you go. And thanks for having me, John.
Thanks, Mike.
Peace.
As he just mentioned, get your Voice of College Football merch. Our friend Joey Foster has stocked us up with brand new merch on the Michigan side and on the main Voice of College Football site. So check that out. Get yourself some merch for yourself, your family, friends, neighbors, relatives, etc. When you're doing your shopping on Amazon, as many of us do, go ahead and click the link in any description section and then Mark Rogers gets a couple of bucks, and then I get to keep doing this. For those of you who are happy about that, maybe if you're not happy about that, you don't click the Amazon link, but click the Amazon link and help support Voice of College Football. You can also become a Patreon member or a YouTube member, starting at just $2.99 for the YouTube membership on the main channel. And then you get access to our chat where we talk Wolverines and other teams all of the time. So with that said, we do have another caller. We've got Minnesota Dave calling in to Michigan Wolverines Live.
Everybody's Irish-looking Italian John. How's it going?
Oh, I'm just on cloud 9, 15-0 national champions, man.
Oh, yeah. Good for you guys. I just want to make some shout outs to my family that lives in Michigan. And I'm like I said, I'm originally from Michigan. And they're extremely happy. And also, my cousin John is, he passed away, unfortunately, of brain cancer 2 years ago. I think he actually ended up passing away maybe a week or two after they lost to Georgia. But he's really happy right now. And for all you Michigan fans are maybe a little bit worried that this thing might be vacated, the NCAA never punishes bigger schools. I'm sorry, they just don't. They just don't. They'll punish like Minnesota. They'll punish like Iowa. They'll punish like anyone else that's not like a big, blue blood program. So, I mean, that's just the history. Our poor basketball team, all they did was just turn in papers that they didn't read, and they got their NCAA Final Four title stripped from them a couple of years back. Well, back in the 90s, back in the Clem Haskins years.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is obviously, this was really a year where there was no room for error. Like I said, Michigan had to win every single game because I believe that even one loss by 1 point to any team, Penn State, Ohio State, anybody, and Michigan would have been out. Because of the strength of schedule, because of how many teams were undefeated or one loss, and because of the sign gate. I think even though the College Football Playoff Committee said they weren't going to factor that in, I think Michigan's 5 with one loss. So, everything had to go right.
You got to feel sorry for Florida State. They got screwed big time. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. Maybe 1 year we don't have to have an SEC school in the playoffs. This could have been the one. I mean, I can see Texas making it. And you maybe make an argument for Georgia, but they lost right away. And that's what hurt them. And
all the Georgia fans are like, oh, well, you're lucky you didn't have to face Georgia. I'm like, well, how about you guys beat Alabama and then you can take a crack at us?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and Bama, they ended up losing to Texas early in the year. Heck, was it Jackson? What was it? Not a couple weeks, but halfway through the football season, he thought that Bama was going to go 9-3. At the beginning of the season because of the way they lost and the way they looked against Southern Florida.
I thought they were going to go 9-3.
Yeah, me too. I think everybody did.
That's a great coaching job, Nick Saban.
Oh, yeah. Nick Saban. God, I hate that guy. I just never was a big fan.
Yeah, but it felt good because I think there is a school of thought that if Michigan had played FSU and then played Washington or Texas, that it would have been considered like a Mickey Mouse national championship because you didn't have an SEC team. So the fact that Michigan had to beat the GOAT and then shellacked Washington by 21 points, it's hard to argue that wasn't an earned national championship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very hard to argue. I mean, the Big Ten was this year, I felt was maybe a little lower because I felt that the West was not as good as it has been. Well, the West was never that good to begin with, but even worse this year. This was a very, very interesting year for Michigan. And let's face facts, we were all kind of wondering, when is the NCAA going to turn their its ugly head and really crack down on Michigan? I mean, it's not totally over yet, but I think they're not going to do anything now.
Yeah. No, I think there's a possibility of scholarships taken. I think there's a possibility of suspensions. But they didn't they didn't actually, and I will fight anybody on this. If you actually read 11.6.1, the NCAA bylaws, it's written for full-time staff. Who did Connor Stallions get to go to these games? Not full-time staff, buddies with iPhones. So I think the NCAA is going to struggle on the punishment, and they'll probably, like I said, they'll probably hand out some suspensions. They'll probably hand out some scholarships. But to say you're going to vacate 24 or 36 or vacating a national title because some guy who acted alone hired buddies with iPhones that doesn't even violate the bylaw, there's no way in hell.
Yeah, I totally agree. But a little bit off of that, a little bit off the topic, but going back to somewhat of the game. What did you think of the Washington quarterback over the years? Because everyone here in Minnesota that's a diehard Vikings fan think that we're going to pick him in the first round. And I'm kind of get a little weird about that.
So let me tell you about Penix. So you may or may not remember that Michigan played Penix before.
Yes, we're early in the season, a couple of years back.
Yes. So in there was a season called 2020 when Indiana beat Michigan with Michael Penix, and he just lit up the Don Brown, Dr. Blitz defense, so he played us 3 years ago, looked great, and then of course against a much, much, much more suited defense to go against somebody like that. Michigan's defense holds him to 255 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. The reason I wouldn't fret too much if you guys get him is because his running back was injured.
Mm-hmm.
His backup running back had 2 carries. So it was almost all on him on the offense. So as a defense, it's real easy to scheme that because you basically you have 4 interior D linemen pushing to get to Penix, and then you drop back a whole bunch of guys to maybe split between man and zone, kind of alternate between the two, which they did,
and then have maybe one guy be a spy for him.
Yeah, maybe. Well, Penix doesn't run much, so I think he ran one time. He's not like Milrow where you had to spy him. So yeah, I think Penix is a great quarterback. He's a warrior. He's gonna, when you I don't know what your O-line is like, and I don't know what your defense is like, and I don't know what your running back situation is. It's the Dalvin Cook still.
Dalvin Cook went to the Jets last year. We dropped him because we had a big salary cap for JJ. Yeah, because JJ took most of the money. Yeah, he's the big time franchise player. So they were kind of like, well, okay, we can't have these 2 big franchise players play for us, and we can't afford one or the other. So we basically gave him to the Jets.
Yeah. Well,
I actually didn't give him to the Jets. We cut him, and then he went to the Jets.
I think if he has a supporting cast of characters and they don't force it to be all on him and his receivers, that that I think he would do very well.
Okay.
I think it was just the fact he was up against the number one defense. He had played at that point pretty crappy defenses. The best was Oregon at 22, but he mostly played crappy defenses. So he was able to just light people up. We had Tony Altimore on Friday night show, and he was talking about, he's a USC fan. And so he was talking about how Washington versus USC, basically Washington got 2 stops and USC got none. And that was the difference in the game, was Washington got 2 stops during.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gosh, the Pac-12 was so horrible defensively as a conference. They, that's been the biggest problem for years. Always offensive talent, but they never picked on anyone that was really good. That was defensive good. I mean, I don't even think the Pac-12 has actually had a really good defense since probably the old Desert Swarm Arizona years, where they were kind of like the Iowa back then, where they had no offense but a great defense.
Yeah. Well, Minnesota Dave, I do have another caller behind you, so I'm going to let you go, but I'll give you a final thought for us.
Well, my final thoughts is, next year's a fresh year, and we'll see what happens. I'm very, very happy for you guys, and congratulations for you. That's all I want to say.
Absolutely.
Have a nice day, guys.
Row the boat.
All right, row the boat, Scotty Ma.
All right, bye now.
Bye.
Okay, and our final caller tonight, friend of the program, Michigan Man, is here with us. Michigan Man, who's got it better than us?
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. Go blue, and how about being national champions in 15-0, huh?
Oh, it's the best thing ever, man. I got a lot to say real quick, man.
Yeah, let's go.
First things first, at this point, the only people complaining about cheating is the Ohio State fan base. Every pundit, all the way down to Paul Feinbaum, said that this was the best team in college football. He was asked directly if Georgia was better. He said no. Michigan. This is Paul Feinbaum. He said Michigan is the best team in college football. So, make it clear, the only people complaining about this at this point are Ohio State fans. Secondly, man, that's the greatest defense.
Sparty,
man.
If they're 4-8, they got to have something to talk about.
Hold on. Yeah. So, anyways, and that's the greatest college football defense of all time, in my opinion. Even the 2021 Georgia defense got cooked for 41 points by Bama. This Michigan defense never gave up more than 24 points in a single game. The yearly average was 10.2 points per game. They were just dominant through and through. Every metric supports that. SP Plus has them as the best defense of all time.
Wow.
I mean,
Clemson,
you can't be more.
2018, no?
2018. I'm talking about defense.
Clemson's defense, 2018.
Clemson's defense in 2018? No, they better than that. If you go by points per game average, Georgia had a better points per game average in 2021 by 0.2. But the reason I put Michigan's ahead is because Michigan never got cooked this year. That 21 Georgia defense got cooked for 41 points. This Michigan defense, what did everybody talk about all week? How you gonna stop 3 NFL receivers? How you gonna stop the quarterback that should have won the Heisman? If you ask me, we made them look like Iowa tonight. Iowa out there, they couldn't do anything. The Joe Moore Award winning offensive line, they didn't look like it. And then on top of that, did you know that this Michigan team is the first team since 01 Miami to lead every single game at half?
Damn. I mean, that makes I feel like that's doesn't happen very often.
Here's another one for you. They had the largest average margin of victory in BCS era, 25 points per game.
Wow. Yeah.
They're the only time they trailed in the second half all year. The only time was versus Bama.
Yeah, nobody scored more than 24 on Michigan, right? 24.
Nobody scored more than 24. Oh, by the way, that's the first time a defense has ever done that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a remarkable.
I mean,
I mean, well coached. Like, give the kudos to the coaching staff, but especially somebody who never gets talked about, Ben Herbert, and the ability to, like, the way that he took over strength and conditioning. And I don't know if you heard, but I was interviewing freshman tight end Zach Marshall, and he was talking about how important he calls him Herb is to his day to day, and how he's held accountable by Herb, and like that culture of accountability and mental and physical toughness. That's it seems like is separating Michigan from other teams like Ohio State.
Oh yeah.
Others.
Hey, another reason why this is the most impressive championship of all time, and I know I'm a Michigan fan, but I'm backing these up with facts, is they have the lowest average composite ranking for recruits to ever win a championship ever.
Oh yeah,
like it's not even close. They took guys that the top programs didn't really value, and they turned them into a team that went 40-3 in the last 3 years and capped it off with a natty. And I haven't even gone to the fact that they didn't even have their head coach for 6 games. They didn't have their head coach for 6 games, and it didn't even matter. They beat four top 10 teams after Corner Stallions. Corner Stallions situation. They beat 4 top 10 teams, and by the way, they covered the spread in every single one of those games.
Yeah.
What can you say? Nothing. When you got people like Paul Feinbaum bowing the knee to Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, when he's got that face of defeat that he can no longer hate, and he got nothing to say, and he just praises him.
Yeah,
there's nothing you can do.
It's true. I mean, the team had, like I said, all episode. They had to go 15-0. There was no room for error. The back was against the wall, and the media narrative was against Michigan. But Michigan had Harbaugh called it a one-track mind. We have a one-track mind. We are here to win it all, and the job isn't finished until we win it all. It's like Kobe Bryant, job not finished. Right? That was
100%.
All the way to the national championship. And now Blake Corum saying business is completed now. And he came back to do this, Michigan man. He came back, as did many of them, with the One More Year Fund. They came back not to just beat Ohio State again. We did that already. Not to just beat.
Oh yeah. That's old news, man. That's on the regular now.
We were going for the title. And they made it happen.
Hey, I'm gonna call out a few people, starting with Darrell. Darrell, man, what happened, my guy? I thought we had a 1% chance, my guy. I thought there was no way we could win one playoff game, let alone the whole thing. That's number one. Hey, John, has Ohio State ever gone 15-0?
Nope.
Okay. Has Ohio State ever won three back-to-back championships and capped it off with a natty?
They've won 3 back-to-back, but they did not cap it off with a natty.
They didn't win a natty in that stretch. So this 3-year stretch, Ohio State doesn't know what that's like.
And Ralph Wolf mentioning even Bama hasn't gone 15-0.
Yeah, not even Bama's gone 15-0. And not only that, I don't think Bama. So the only teams were Clemson, Georgia, and LSU. With other teams to go 15-0.
LSU, right? So yeah, Georgia, Clemson, LSU, and Michigan are the 4.
And they didn't do it missing their head coach for 6. I told Mark this yesterday. I was like, because I think it's the greatest team to ever win a championship, and he brought up those other teams. I was like, well, do you really think that those teams could lose their head coach last second and beat 2 juggernauts in that span? Do you think they would have pulled that off? I don't think so. I don't know anyone that can handle that. That's tough. So haters
Yeah,
can hate, but we the kings.
And so even friend of the program Tim Prengley's in the comments saying 15-0 is an amazing stat. Another stat that's really interesting is that Michigan's 303 rushing yards in the game were the most by a national title winner in the BCS and college football playoff era since '98.
Yeah. Hey, not only that, Donovan Edwards has the number 2 and 3 longest runs in the college football playoff era.
Yeah, freaking Donovan Edwards. Yeah, I think Derrick Henry might have had one that was a couple.
Yeah, he is the number 1. He's the number 1 run. It's like 50 yards.
Donovan Edwards had 2 and 3, I think, and Corum went off for a big one as well. Yeah, I mean the running game was just on it, and I thought the running game, like I predicted about 250 rushing yards, and we got 303. So
honestly, they could have had 500 if they kept with the run. They could have shattered probably a bowl record if they did. They didn't, because they got one thing I hate, and this is getting nitpicky. I think we do get a little cute at times, and we try to be a little too creative, like with the orgy stuff. And then I didn't think we needed to pass as much as we did. And they would have stuck with the run like through and through. I think they could have had 400 or 500 yards, man. Just running the ball. So, hey, man, I'm going to let you go, man. Like I said, we the Kings. Build Jim Harbaugh a statue. The real, where you at? You know what I'm saying? Ohio State fans, I hate to be you. Yeah, peace out.
All right, thanks, Michigan man. All righty. So, some great calls. Obviously, have had a nice celebratory show there. Went longer than we normally do. We'll get back to our professional business center next week when we don't have tornadoes, and we'll get back to our tight hour and all of that good stuff. Couple of final reminders. Of course, if you haven't hit the like button yet, you haven't subscribed to Michigan Football, the voice of college football, please do so. Hit that like button for us. It helps with the algorithm, helps with everything. And please subscribe to Michigan Football. We are trying to obviously get up there as the number 1 team channel. So we would love for us to keep striving towards that milestone. As I said before, don't forget to do your Amazon link when you're doing your shopping on Amazon, Patreon, and YouTube membership, and so on. Check out our merch store, as Mike Fort was modeling. We have our new merch in, so check that out. Next up on our must-see TV block, we have 2 shows for you coming up. So coming up next in about 15 minutes is Oregon Ducks Live, 10:15 p.m. Eastern. So that will be with Exploring with Ben and a cast of co-hosts. I'm going to put the link right here to send everybody to that. Oregon Ducks Live at 10:15 p.m. Eastern. So that's going to be the next show. And then at 11 p.m. Eastern, we do have Trojan Conquest Live on a special night, Tuesday night. And of course, we have Mark Rogers, Matt Zemek, and Tim Prengley, who do that show and put together a great show to talk about the USC Trojans every week. So must-see TV. Check out Oregon. Give them a like if you can. And then give Trojan Conquest Live as well a visit if you can at 11 p.m. Eastern tonight. And that's it for me. My name's John D'Adamo, and I was your host for the last couple hours. Check me out on Twitter at John D'Adamo if you haven't already. And until next time, go Blue. Michigan is national champions. Thanks, everybody.